Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Energy Institute webinar on mental wellbeing. My name is Jamie Walker, and I am the Technical Manager for the Energy Institute's Health Technical Committee. The committee produces quality guidance on both health and occupational health in the workplace. The presentation which you are about to see today links nicely into a piece of work which we are currently undertaking on mental wellbeing, a subject which has obviously become more prominent over the past decade or so, and increasingly so in 2020 and 2021, as the whole world fights against the current COVID pandemic. Health specialists recognise that the after effects of COVID will be with us both mentally and physically for many years, and good guidance is extremely important to allow both employers and employees to better understand the resources available to them. Could I also take this opportunity to extend our thanks to the Bahrain Petroleum Company, who are our host partner today. Many thanks to them for allowing us to showcase this valuable piece of work. I should also mention that the HSE Forum is endorsed by the National Oil and Gas Authority Bahrain and the Sustainable Energy Authority. For the question and answer session, please direct any questions into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. I will monitor the questions and pose them to our speaker, who will answer as many as she possibly can during the Q&A session. We will also be using the polling facility during the webinar, which again will be at the bottom of your screen, and I would ask you to interact when each of the polls are opened. These polls are anonymised and your names and addresses or anything will not be shared. Turning now to our speaker, I would like to welcome Mandy Rutter. Mandy is a psychologist, counsellor and trainer who specialises in improving the mental health of employees, managers and senior leaders within all areas of the workplace. During lockdown alone, Mandy has delivered over 250 webinars on a wide range of psychological topics such as mental health awareness, stress and burnout, suicide prevention and race, gender and well-being, along with over 400 resilience coaching sessions with organisations as diverse as Arsenal Football Club, major financial institutions and government departments. Mandy also specialised in workplace trauma and supported employees affected by major incidents such as the 9/11 bombing, the 7/7 bombing and Manchester Arena bombing. She then utilised her trauma experience to develop an expertise in the human aspects of business continuity and was part of a working group with BSI developing a published document, PD 25111, Guidance on Human Aspects of Business Continuity. Mandy has also written many articles for professional journals about the importance of the line manager's role in managing employees with mental health conditions, and the importance of senior leaders in creating a workplace culture that promotes emotional resilience and positive mental health. Mandy is also the consultant of the forthcoming Energy Institute Managing Mental Wellbeing in the Workplace and post-COVID-19 and through the energy transition. It's my pleasure to hand over to Mandy Rutter.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here today. And this week is a pretty special week, actually, in relation to thinking about people and relation to thinking about how we can make best use of our people and what are some of the difficulties that we sometimes find when we don't focus on the people. So this week, we've got the 20th anniversary of 9/11, just as Jamie described. And that, as you said, is very pertinent to me. I helped a lot of people on the telephone after that time. So that's such an important and really helped to turn around the way that our organisations think about how to support people. And secondly, it is this week on Friday, World Suicide Prevention Day. And that's a difficult topic but for us to talk about, but one which is so essential and necessary that us in our organisations, we are courageous and brave enough to be able to talk about those things. And I'll pick those up a little bit later. So my session today is, I'd love to talk to you about a range of things really that under this title. So we're really focusing on the people that make your industry. We're focusing on how they think, how they feel. We're focused on getting the best of the people that you've got in your industry, focusing on your most energetic resource, which is your people. Without your people, we don't have an industry. And without our people, we don't have the creative ideas that we need to be able to think about all the renewable and exciting stuff that you need to, which is part of your industry. So I'm going to start by sort of thinking about mental health and thinking about how we, because as people, our mental health is so important. So we're going to talk about mental health. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So get ready on your computers to join in with me. If you're doing emails at the same time, well, you'll need to go backwards and forwards and do a bit of multitasking, because actually I need you to engage with some of this with me. I'm also going to then talk about a lovely model of human energy. So I'm going to talk about that for you to help you understand that. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about, just as Jamie talked about then, about the guidance document that we're producing, and ask you some questions about, what you need in relation to that. All right, so get ready with your questions to put them in a little bit later as well. So I'm going to talk for about 25 minutes or so on the importance of focusing on your people. So first thing, let's just think about our mental health. So the people in front of you, yes, it's the body that you've got. Yes, it's the intellect, but the mental health. So what goes on in our mind, what goes on in our thoughts, what goes on in our motivations, everything. People bring not just themselves, not just their bodies and their intellect, but they bring their mind, they bring their emotions to work. And anyone who employs people, manages people, leads people, you need to absolutely focus on that and see that as an essential part of how you go about helping and managing and leading people. So mental health refers to how we feel about ourselves, our environment, how we're managing our thoughts and our emotions. It's really what drives us. Our mental health determines how we assess risks. So essential in your business here, how you assess risks. I know when I'm really stressed, I don't assess risks very well. The times when I've been most at risk, so here in the UK, mostly we're supposed to drive at 30 miles an hour. I know when I'm stressed, I always break the speed limit to the point where I've got some points on my license. I know when I'm most stressed because I had 11 points on my license. I don't assess risks very well when I am stressed. All of my thoughts are about my own stress rather than looking at the bigger picture of what's going on. And that may be true for other people as well that's on this call. But our mental health, how we feel about ourselves and our thoughts, it determines how we relate to others. If you are stressed, if you're a leader, if you're a manager, your stress will fill your thoughts and you won't have space in your mind to focus on other people. You will lack empathy. Whether you say, no, I won't, I can manage my stress and I can be empathic. Not really. The biochemistry in your brain says that if you are stressed, focus on yourself, focus on the stress. Don't focus on other people, or just focus on the dangers that are around you. So it's really hard to be positive. It's really hard to be creative. It's really hard to have new ideas when you are stressed. That's why sometimes away days and conferences are actually really important, to remove people from the stress of the day to allow their brain to focus on creativity. But look, our mental health doesn't remain static. It changes hourly, daily, weekly, as we go through some of the difficult experiences. And you may want to think about, what are the biggest influence on how you feel? What are the biggest influences on how we feel? Is it the weather? Is it your past experiences? Is it relationships? Well, let me tell you, in the workplace, the biggest influences on people's mental health in the workplace is their relationship with their line manager. If you are a line manager here, if you are a leader, you have incredible influence over how the people that you're managing feel. And it's essential to know that. And that's because you have influence, you have power, you have authority. And it's therefore important to understand about the impact that you have. Are you positive? Are you challenging? Are you supportive? Are you kind? Are you generous? Are you quick one-liner emails? However you are, that will influence how people are feeling. So when we think about mental health, we're all somewhere on a continuum of mental health. So mental health doesn't remain static. We can every day, I can move from being okay to actually being really stressed and then back again. So I can move from the green, healthy, through to just about coping to, oh my goodness, struggle, to actually unwell. I can move backwards and forwards in that. But actually, also why this continuum is so important is because our aim in the workplace is to have people, as many people in the green, in the healthy place as possible. Yes, we can manage a few people coping. We can provide resources to help them cope. And that's what we're doing here at Energy Institute. We're providing some resources to help people cope. But once we get into struggling, if that remains for quite a long time, that's when people are feeling exhausted, tired, disillusioned, stressed, worried. And if they do nothing about that, if they don't ask for help, if you don't provide the right environment, they'll tip into the unwell part. And that's where we're thinking about anxiety, depression, clinical diagnoses, really deep, a real deep sense of worry and not being able to function. So we've got mental health, which is what goes on in our mind, and it's how we think about things, how we gauge, how we manage relationships. And then our mental illness, which is over in the unwell part of things, something that disrupts our state and interrupts and disrupts how we get on with our lives and how we get on with our work. So that's a very, very broad sort of idea, a little bit about mental health. And now I'd like you to ask you how your mental health is today. So we've actually got a poll that Jamie is going to launch for us, which is, how are you feeling today? Now, we've got a poll here. It should have come up in front of you. What I'd love you to do is this is anonymous. I can't see how many, I can't see that it's you that's filling it in. Can't see who's there. So just tick one of these, the poll that says, that really relates a bit more to how you're feeling today. Are you great? Are you thriving? Are you optimistic? Or are you just sort of in that coping, not too bad, but worried things are maybe not as good as they could be, maybe coping. And then we're coming into the struggling, tired, constantly anxious. And then, the unwell would be sort of constantly anxious, exhausted, feeling despondent about the future, a sense of anxiety, a sense of depression. And anxiety, depression are the most common mental health conditions that we are dealing with at the moment. And we've got double the amount of anxiety and depression following, whilst we're managing the pandemic as we did before the pandemic. Or are we oscillating? Are we moving around? All of the above at different times. So just take a second, and I'm just going to get Jamie to come on when Jamie, I'm thinking that you potentially can see how we're doing in terms of filling it in and how many people are when we're ready. Yeah, I
can, Mandy. Yeah, we've got half of the people have participated so far. So if the others could fill in, that'd be great.
Good. Okay, the reason why I'm doing this also, whenever I do a webinar, I always ask people, I do a little check-in, self-awareness check-in. So while our focus today is about focusing on the people that you manage, you need to know where you are. You're a person there. You need to have some self-awareness. So every day we should be checking out, how am I feeling today? What do I need to do to get myself in good shape today? Do I need to take a break? Do I need to exercise? Do I need to stretch? Self-awareness is so important. And that's why we're doing this as the first thing as part of our webinar. Right. Shall we close the poll, Jamie, and have a look? Great. Okay, so good. This is a fantastic group. Okay, now look at this. We've got 25% of us who are great, thriving, developing new ideas. Good. So that's good. We are struggling sometimes with that, but before the pandemic, we were probably looking at between 15 and 17% of us are thriving. So actually in our group today, we've got 25%, which I know we've not got many people answered there, but that's great. Optimistic, good. So we've got the vast majority of our people who are listening here, optimistic and great. But look down here, we've got constantly anxious, exhausted and feeling despondent about the future. Now, this is significant. If that's what's happening, what I would suggest, and there may be other people who are feeling that, what I would suggest is after this session, you actually take a step back, think, actually, who can I talk to? Should I talk to my manager about my workload? Do I need to talk to my family about not feeling great? Do I need to talk to a health provider? You know, maybe your doctor, maybe your employee assistance program, maybe private healthcare, because actually, depending how long you've been feeling despondent, is that just today? Is that for a week? Is that for 2 weeks? Because if that's longer than about 2 weeks, you're going to be needing to get some support, some professional support. Okay, so all good. So thank you for that, the self-awareness. But let's have a look now, just moving us through, for example, let's have a look at why our mental health is so important to prioritize. We've seen there that when you ask questions about how people are, you can see that sometimes people are struggling. We've got to be prepared for the answers, because look, worldwide, 1 billion people have mental health disorder. That's usually anxiety or depression. It's huge. Jamie talked at the beginning about this being, obviously it's a coronavirus pandemic. It's also a pandemic about our mental health. And 1 in 4 of us, 1 in 4 are like to experience mental ill health at some point every year. And 1 in 17 of us live with a condition. So this is high. In your workforce, this is very present. 1 in 4 of us, if you have a team of 8, that's 2 people experience some mental ill health at some point. We need to understand and need to get hold of this. Now, as we've said, common mental health disorders, depression and anxiety, but how much do we know about those? How much do we know about that? And, you know, the depression also is really an important aspect of, look at this, depression is the single largest contributor to global disability. The single largest contributor. So in the world, you know, depression is the #1 thing, the #1 contributor to global disability. And the third, you know, leading cause of, you know, global illness there, and that's after cancer and cardiovascular illness. So depression, mental illness is like mental ill health, really high up here. It's really essential that we go on top of it. And look at it, depression or anxiety doubles the risk of not recovering from stroke or heart attack. So it's really essential that we have resources, we get help early. In addition, as I said before, suicide. That's why mental health is dangerous. Understanding about mental health is so essential, because on the verge, it can lead, if we don't take care of our emotions, it can lead to us feeling that really low, feeling that we've got no option, and really those suicidal thoughts, which are so dangerous. And I believe our workplaces, we should be courageous and brave about talking about suicide. It's around us. It's not going to tip people over the edge. That's a myth that needs to be challenged. It's an essential part of our mental health training and education, because suicide, certainly here in the UK, is the leading cause of death for men under the age of 49 and women under the age of 34. And if we've got any risk managers, if we've got any health and safety managers, got any health, you know, when we think about risks to life, actually, if you're a man under the age of 49 here in the UK, it's suicide is the biggest risk. So this is powerful. This is really essential learning that we need to get hold of. And also, you know, people with mental ill health, it's a life-limiting illness, because medication is hard. So people with severe mental disorders, such as schizophrenia and bipolar, tend to die 10 to 20 years earlier than the general population. Often the medication is tough, the lifestyle is hard. So we, in our workplaces, really need to provide an educational environment where people can, if they need support, they can get support, and we provide that environment where people can flourish. Okay, so workplaces then. Now, many people have reported worldwide that their workplaces have not necessarily been that supportive to them during the pandemic. And we need to be brave in workplaces and say, what more can we do to support you? How can we help you through this? So how can we understand what we can do to help people? Well, my title is about energy, because we're here at the Energy Institute. And rather than just talking, you know, blanket mental health, I wanted to offer you something about human energy. Now, we all think about human energy as like almost how fast you can run, you know, or how much energy you've got to be able to do your work. But energy is not just about physical energy. The human body is just such a brilliant, holistic organism, that it actually responds to we've got 4 parts of our body that responds to different sorts of energy engagement. Yes, we've got physical. You know that we've got physical energy. How can we increase our physical energy? Water, nutrition, moving. Interestingly, the more we move, the more energy that we create. So physical energy, yes, is essential. That's not about working too many hours, making sure you have enough of a break. But we also have emotional energy. That's about when you feel really tired, but someone that you love comes in through the door. So when you have that, or your dog, I don't know, people might love their dogs or their children or their partners or their garden, whatever. It's almost like you can feel incredibly physically tired, but when someone you love or something that you love comes in, you have a burst of energy. So we have emotional energy that actually weaves into our physical energy, but adds us another quality of energy. Then we have mental energy, intellectual energy, brain energy. So again, you can be really physically tired. Has anyone been physically tired but wired, where your brain is on fire? This is so exciting. This is so interesting. And so that learning, even though you're physically tired, your learning can still take place. And then we have spiritual energy. Again, not religious necessarily, but maybe religious for you, which is about our values and our purpose. And that's, again, you can be physically exhausted. You can be exhausted through work. Your brain can be tired. But if someone says to you, I've got children, if someone says, Mum, I think it's only you that can help us with this, immediately I've got more energy, because my purpose is to provide a good home for my children. And as soon as they start asking me a question about my role as a mum, then I'm able to actually generate more energy. Or I believe in the environment, and energy, renewable energy. So I can become completely and physically exhausted. But if you give me a little article to read about how, we can help the planet, actually, I'm really there. I'm interested, because part of my values is about renewable energy, sustaining the planet. So when we think about our mental health is really influenced by those 4 different energy levels. And we in the workplace can actually tap into this. This is why mental health and well-being is not just about exercise and fruit. It's about providing purpose, tapping into people's, what are they interested in? What makes them feel great? What makes them enjoy their work? That's that emotional energy. And of course, the physical energy. So these 4 things are really essential. And this is from an idea called the corporate athlete model, which is so powerful and helpful for us. So I'd like to tap into you. So here we've got another poll, which is about how many micro habits. Let's just raise this for a second. How many micro habits are you doing on a daily basis to help to engage the different parts of your energy? So let's have a look. So we've got the poll up there. So I've got you quite a few things. You may need to scroll down if you can't see it there. But each of those micro habits relate to a different part of that energy pyramid. So look, regular breaks, that's physical energy. Keeping active, physical energy. Prioritizing sleep, physical energy. So really getting when we sleep, we absolutely create energy. So sleeping is a storing of energy. And then when we work during the day and live during the day, that's when we burn our energy. So look, celebrate personal successes. That's emotional energy. Celebrating, achieving, saying well done. That's fantastic. That's positive emotional energy. Talking to family and friends, emotional energy. Speaking up and pushing back if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. That's our mental energy. That's our sort of logic, our brain energy. Don't hold on to criticism. Remember the bigger perspective. That's our brain, our intellectual energy. And then look, say thanks in the moment. That's beginning to be a bit more about spiritual, about how you relate to people, and spend the most amount of time on things that are important to you and match your values. That is our spiritual energy. I don't know if you've ever worked in an environment where your personal values have not matched. your professional values that you're working with. If there isn't a match, you will find yourself lacking energy. However many runs you go on, however much water you drink, if your personal values are not matched and your energy is really depleted at the top of our pyramid, it will affect all parts of the pyramid. It will make you feel lethargic. It will make you feel negative. So you need to tap in. So my title of how can the energy, industry tap into the best of its resources, which is its people, recognize that there's all 4 elements of energy within us and tap into those. Right, Jamie, shall we close the poll and have a look? Great. So how many healthy habits are we doing? Taking regular breaks, not too bad. That's not too big. Prioritizing sleep, good. We're not having many people keeping active. That's a bit of a shame there. So that's what we really, really must do. But regular breaks is good. Celebrate achievements. I'm noticing that we're not doing that in many places at all. So we're not celebrating achievements. That will lead to lack of confidence. That will lead to lack of positivity. And people might be carrying on working, but they won't feel great. And our job is to really help people thrive. If we want people to thrive, we've got to celebrate successes, just little wins, not massive big things like writing a book or re-landscaping your garden, little things like you've got through every day, you've turned up, you've delivered, just little tiny things, you've played with your children, you've taken the dog out every day. We've got, just looking at the polls again, talking to family and friends, not too bad, something to look forward to, great, good, good, good. Speaking up and pushing back, that's again about trying to, if we've got leaders on our call today, we're providing an environment where we encourage people to speak up. It's called psychological safety. It's where we feel safe enough to be vulnerable about how we feel, safe enough to talk about our own feelings, safe enough to challenge our managers, challenge our leaders. And look at that, being kind. We're a kind group. Be kind, say thanks in the moment. That's lovely. We always need to be kind. That helps us feel good and helps us feel that we belong. And then spending the most amount of things on that are important to you. Interestingly, one or two people not on that one. Please rethink about your values, and are you doing a role and a job that really lives out your values? Because sometimes you may need to rethink the role, the job, the routine that you do to match your personal values. Okay, so a little bit of work to be done then. Right, so hopefully what we're picking up is that we can tap into we can create great mental health by understanding the different activities that we can do for ourselves to keep ourselves in good shape, but also to help our employees. Right, so let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you now, let's moving through to you as colleagues, as managers. How can our leaders provide an environment that really encompasses what we've just been talking about and promotes positive mental health, which will then help our people be energetic? And one of the things I want just to be aware of when we think about this is the recognition of the oscillations of human energy. I'm hoping that that's language that you're really familiar with energy professionals, that oscillations, that actually, let me just show you this graph, which I hope that you'll really get to grips with, that in a way, human energy, it needs to be replenished. It needs to be replaced through rest and through recovery, because the human body, it's very rhythmic. Our mind, our mood, our thoughts. So look, what I've given here is the human energy. The body is a very rhythmical organ. It absorbs energy and it gives out energy, whether that's like physical energy, whether that's human energy, physical energy, emotional energy, spiritual energy. Look at the blue curve there. That's actually our circadian rhythm, where we sleep so it's like every day we sleep in order to, as I said, to store energy. We work to burn energy up and down and up and down and up and down. And if you don't sleep well, you'll be snacking and you'll be grabbing at things to absorb that energy. And then, but on top of our circadian rhythm, we've got what we call sleep-wake homeostasis. So that means that when we are working for a long time and energetic for a long time, our body says rest, 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 rest. And what I've shown you here is you'll know if you've ever done shifts, shift pattern, you'll know if you're not sleeping well, that actually, or you've got jet lag, that actually your rhythms are not aligned with each other. Why we feel so lethargic and tired and low after jet lag is that our circadian rhythm of sleep and wake is out of line with our physical rhythm of doing lots of work and lots of activity and then resting. And when these are out of line, you will feel low energy, you will feel slightly low physically, you will question your purpose, you will think, what the hell am I doing? So actually, one of the roles of us in the workplace is to help people's energy rhythms align together. And we can do that by focusing on that energy pyramid, asking those questions. And I love this little green arrow. I've got this here because I thought this might be helpful for you, that you need giving out, when you've given out energy, the human body no one is superhuman. No one is superhuman. We give out energy and then we need to rest. Give out more energy, rest. And if we fail to recover and rest, our achievement will drop. And you've got to give people that space to rest. You've got to give people the space to rest, to recover. When you look at our athletes in the Tokyo Olympics there, the athletes train, they train, and within that train is rest. You know, if you want to build muscle, for example, and you do weight training, when you lift the weights, that is not building muscle. When you lift weights, you tear muscle, and the muscle rebuilds stronger when you rest. If you don't rest, the muscle will burn out, as will our mind, as will our emotions, as will our whole body and our whole our whole mental state. And that's why we've got quite a bit of burnout at the moment. We'll maybe come to that a little bit later. Right, so recognizing all of this, having acknowledged all of this, this is my last poll, just checking my time here. Yep. So my last poll to you is, how many of these actions, does your organization do to promote a culture of mental health? So have a little look at this poll. It's a little bit wordy here, but have a little read and you can see. Really, when we think about mental health, it starts at the top. Do you have a sponsor? Do you have someone at the top of the organization that talks about mental health, that says it's important, that talks about the people element? Because that's really essential. You won't change culture unless you have the leaders, the people with power doing that. What about your wellbeing resources? Do you have employee assistance programs, wellbeing teams, mental health first aiders? Do we train them? Do you have that within your organization? Do you train line managers? This has been half an hour's presentation on mental health. Do all your line managers get this? Because these are the people that have the influence. What about your data? Do you know how people are regularly? Do you do a little pulse check of how people are? Do you communicate? People need to know, people need to feel that they want to be engaged with you. Interactive forum, do you value people's ideas? Do you ensure that positive mental health is incorporated into policies? Fatigue, stress management, recruitment, exit interviews. Do you ask about how people feel? Bullying, harassment, prejudice. That's so essential for us to manage as part of our mental health. And leaders manage to role model mentally healthy behavior. Do they talk about good sleep? Do they do it? Or do they come in and bang their fists on the table and demonstrate that actually stress is something, acting stressfully is something that is rewarded here? Or being heroes about not sleeping, is that rewarded? Okay, so have a little look and see what you already do. And it'd be interesting to see, we've got Jamie and Martin from the Energy Institute, how well the Energy Institute does on this, as well as an organization. So Jamie, let me know when we're nearly there. Great. Okay, so we've done well here. So identify a sponsor, not too bad, less than half. So a little bit of work to do. We may need to do some of our, we've got some very outspoken people. I work quite a lot with BP here. We've got, our leader at BP, Chief Executive, very vocal about mental health. The leaders, that needs to be something that is thought about very seriously. Range of wellbeing, good. 4 out of 5 for good resources. Mental health, only 1. Train line managers on mental health. It needs to be something that all line managers do, not by choice, but by actually, that's a part of their role. Regular data, look, we need a little bit of work on that. Communicating regularly, good. Interactive forums, great. So we're good on the people stuff. Ensure positive mental health is incorporated into policies. Now look at the actively challenging bullying, harassment, prejudice and stigma. That's not there. And don't forget to scroll down, everyone, so that you can see those last two. And actively challenging bullying, and leaders manage to role model. We're not doing so well on role modeling. And that's why I put the stuff in that's really important for us to look after ourselves. Okay, so it's a little bit of work for us to do. And I'm thinking, Martin and Jamie, we should keep these results actually, so that we have a bit of an understanding of where our organizations are and where we need to focus. So this is great. Okay, good. So thank you for that. So I hope that has been quite, a useful sort of like whistle-stop tour, if you like, of mental health, of energy, of what you can do to support yourself and others. And I just want to spend a minute or so talking about what we are going to, our aim is with producing the guidance document. So I've just done half an hour on what is mental health, how we can think about energy, how we can manage some of the tools that we can manage it. Our aim is to produce a guidance that has all of that in much more detail, and gives you a manual, gives you a sort of like a book, a manual, a resource that you can tap into to help to understand different aspects of mental health. And so I've given you here some of the chapters that we've got in our guidance document. So in the document, we talk about just what we've tried to do is to give you a short version of a lot of things. So things like suicide awareness, things about line managers, things about continuum of mental health, and then to give you quite a lot of resources that you can pick up on afterwards for your particular organization. So you'll have a look at that. We've got some risk factors from energy professionals, whether that's our change in energy, whether that's high profile focus. Men, we've got a lot of men in the industry too. So what are our issues with mental health and men, but how are we going to attract women? How can we think about women in relation to energy or the energy industry? What about your responsibilities? You've had a little look at those on that slide. We'd go into that in a lot more detail for you. And then looking at the employee journey of mental health support and resources, from when an employee, looks at the advert to join your organization. Does it say that you care about the people that work for you? Does it have that vision there? When they come, what does their induction look like? Do they get told about the resources? Do they get introduced to people? What happens in line manager conversations? What happens in promotion and talent? What happens in workshops and interest groups? And then exit interviews or retirement, where do we focus on mental health? So the whole journey through the organization. Right, I have come to the end of my input with you. I'd really like to just take a moment for you to, I've given you a lot there, so have a moment to think. And if there's any questions or thoughts or ideas, if you disagree with me, if you agree, please feel free to ask any questions or to say anything.
Thank you, Mandy. We do have one question, and that question is there a specific reason for the difference in male/female prevalence of suicide versus age?
That's such a great question. So now, a couple of things to say about that. Yes, there is, but we need to be careful. In relation to suicide, clearly, we can't talk to people who have killed themselves by suicide. However, we can talk and done a lot of research with people who have attempted suicide. And what we find is that when we think about suicidal thinking, what happens is people get into a state of real sort of narrowness of their thinking and thinking there's no option other than the suicidal behavior. So when people get very desperate, they get very stressed, they get very worried, and they think about options, and those options close down. The options close down, the options close down until they feel that this is the only option they've got. Now, what happens is women are actually more likely to reach out when they worry, when they stress. Women are more likely to talk to their friends, talk to their family, talk to healthcare providers. If we look in the UK here at our GP surgeries, there's many more women who reach out at an early stage. Men are not good, and this is the research, that are not good at using mental health resources. We need to be really thoughtful about how we reach men. They're not good at asking for help. They're not good at using the resources. They don't ask for help when they're struggling, and therefore the struggle gets worse, and the alcohol gets more, drugs get more. So we've got more men who use alcohol and drugs on a regular basis. More men have suicidal behavior. But when you look at, for example, the figures for depression, 1 in 8 men experience depression, 1 in 5 women experience depression. That's from the figures of asking for help. That's not really what goes on. Women don't have more depression than men. Actually, it's just that men don't come and talk about it. And so what happens is men struggle and suffer from not talking about it. Now, so if we think about that as an option, as something, but the age group is an interesting one. Now, age group, the men aged between 40 and 49 is the highest number, is the age group with the highest number of suicides. Now, you might say to me, well, why? What's going on? Isn't it our young people? Well, we may have, what I would say, and Janie, you may want to come in on this, but what happens is that age group are in a transition. They have been brought up with a very heavy stigma around mental health. Don't talk about it. Be strong. Be a man. Don't cry. Don't show your emotions. Be strong. So they've been brought up with that message. And yet in our society with our young people coming through, it's much more in social media, talk about this, our celebrities talking about this, our sports people talking about this. So there's a clash of stigmas. Yes, goodness gracious, I'm glad there's a clash of stigmas at one level, because our whole arena is changing in relation to mental health, but some of us are struggling with that. How do we define ourselves? How do we move forward with that? We've been brought up with the messages of one environment, and yet around us is another environment. And therefore, I think our older men struggle with that, the definition of themselves, how to ask for help, should they ask for help, what happens if they ask for help. They're often in middle places in their career or high level in their careers. They've got financial issues, they've got family issues, they've got all sorts of things going on, but asking for help is still a struggle. Jamie, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I can probably come in on that, Mandy. From a personal perspective, probably 15 years ago now, I had my own battles, my own mental health battles. And for quite some time, it was hard for me to recognize that I got those issues. I finally realized that I needed to see somebody after I'd been sat crying for so long. And I did so, and it made me realize that by talking to somebody, it made things so much easier. So obviously I'm from a slightly older age group, but from a younger age group, my son had his own issues 18 months ago now. He was pretty chronic, depressive, suicidal as well. He's quite happy for me to talk about it. He talks about it as well, but he shared those feelings at an early stage. And again, the age gap, because he was so much younger, because he was in an age where people were talking about it more, he was more willing to do so. So there is definitely, as you say, the difference between the different generations there.
Yeah. And asking for help is such a hard one. And I do think each organization needs to think about its own culture and how you encourage people to ask for help. And actually, sometimes as line managers, we can help that a lot, actually, by saying to people, so we've got an hour to talk about our work, but I'd just like to say the first 10 minutes of how are you? How's your workload? How are you feeling about work? Are you well supported? So having a little range of questions that help people focus on who they are rather than just the workplace. So that's why I think that line manager training is so essential.
Most definitely. And the first poll that came up this morning, to that one person that acknowledged that they were having difficulties, I would actively encourage you to just reach out and talk to somebody, because you will find it makes a hell of a difference. It really does. So be it a stranger, be it a professional, be it somebody next to you at work or at home, please reach out to that person and just talk to somebody. We have a hand raised from one of the participants, Mr. or Miss Habides. Would you like to join us at this stage? You may be on mute, I'm not sure. It's down. Okay, no problem.
Okay.
We do have a couple of questions there as well. Mandy, you work across many industries. Is there anything impacting mental health that is more prominent in the energy sector than in other sectors?
Oh, that's such a good question. So one of the things I think, a couple of things actually, I think, I want to say to you that you need to look at the background, the qualifications, the background, the environment that the people you work with have come from. So I want you to think, like, are you working with a lot of engineers? Are you working with a lot of technicians? Are you working with people who for whom mental health has not necessarily been a part of their journey to get to you in your organization? So for example, what I notice is that sometimes our workplaces is the main place in the energy industry where people are learning about their mental health. It's almost not been a part of any of their experiences up to the point where they become employees. Now, if this is the case, we then need to be able to have a whole range of mental health interventions from people who, recognizing that this could be the first time people have ever talked about it, all the way up to people who are very experienced that want to help others. So what I'm noticing in the energy industry is that you've got this big range, if you like, of how people can enter into talking about mental health. And we need to provide the different options. So we need to provide, for example, just one-off webinars on things like, how food affects mood, for example, a nice, really nice way of introducing mental health into everyday activities, or how exercise affects our mood, a nice, gentle way of introducing it, all the way up to line manager training, mental health first aiders, really pushing resources that are there. So in the energy industry, what I notice is that I feel that providing a range of resources that people can access at the point that they're at with mental health journey is really important. And that's quite different from, like, yesterday I was working with a nursing group, a group of nurses. And interestingly, nurses know a lot about this, as you can imagine, but they don't do it. So it's like, actually my job with nurses is to get them to act on the knowledge that they know is important for them. That's a very different job to, and then I work with some lawyers, really interesting with lawyers. They are they're really keen to start talking about their mental health. Like, honest, sort of like, so I did some coaching with them, and we offer a resource. We had over 60% uptake on lawyers wanting to come and talk about their mental health. So we don't have to do much engagement there. We just have to provide a good resource. But with the energy industry, I don't know what you think on this, Jamie, but I think providing easy access points for lots of for people at different points on the journey is so important.
Yeah, you're quite right, Mandy. And this follows on to another question that's just been asked, actually, and that's, if you think a staff member is struggling, sometimes it's hard to find a way of broaching the issue with them, finding a way to reach out and connect. Have you got any advice on how best to do that?
Yeah, so I'm going to do a really quick, this is maybe for another time, everyone, but we have a 5-stage approach for how to have a conversation with someone about their mental health. And I'm really quickly going to tell you, number one, start the conversation, and you do that by articulating what you notice. Now, stay with me on this. So, for example, Jamie, if I could just imagine doing it with you for a moment. Jamie and I'll do a little role play to show you. So I might be the line manager. You don't have to say anything, you're fine. Yeah, I'd be the line manager, and I would say what you would do, because this is a conversation you don't want people to get defensive with. All right. So you need to be gentle, you need to be kind, but you need to be firm because you're worried about the person. So I might say to Jamie, as your line manager, you do such a great job here. I know that you really value what you do. I've noticed in the last couple of weeks that you've been a little bit more withdrawn, you've been a little bit quieter, you've not been your normal self. Can we have a chat about that? You don't have to say anything, Jamie. Okay, you're fine. You just have to sit there. Now, what we do with that, why I'm telling you that couple of things is number one, remind the person of your relationship with them. As your line manager, I care about what you do. Okay, remind that. Secondly, be positive about who they are. Be positive about what you know about them. Jamie, I know that you're a great guy here. I know that you work really hard. I know you're committed. The third thing is to articulate what you notice. I've noticed that you're not feeling great, that you're withdrawn. I've noticed that you're a little bit more cynical at the moment about what you're doing. I've noticed you're a little bit more irritable with your colleagues. Say what you notice. Now, if you've done it with the first two things, people shouldn't get defensive. If they get defensive and say, what do you mean? What do you mean? You can then back it up by saying, well, I know that you would never want to upset anyone, but I noticed that you've upset blah, 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 so I want you to, so remind them of the relationship, remind them of the positives of who they are, and then articulate what you've noticed and have make it open. Don't do your own diagnosis. Don't be saying, Jamie, I see that you're a little bit more withdrawn. Are you struggling with depression? Are you taking antidepressants? Have you been to your doctors? Don't ask loads of questions all at once. That's one of my problems. I ask too many questions all at once. How are you? What have you been doing? Where's your holiday? Does anyone do that? Where you're interested, you just over ask. Be patient. When people are struggling with their mental health, to be honest, their cognitions are a bit slower. So I'm quite a fast talker. So I might say to Jamie, how are you doing? And then if he doesn't answer me straight away, I say, because have you been on holiday? And I interrupt the moment where Jamie is thinking, what shall I say? So be slow, be thoughtful, be slow with your thinking, be thoughtful, be kind. I did say I'm going to give you 5 stages. Articulate what you notice, listen to the answer, listen. Summarize what the person says. Ask the person questions about what would be helpful to them. So it's like, I see that things have been quite difficult for you. Yeah, I can hear that you've had some overwhelm. What do you think might be helpful? How can I support you with this? And then do some action. Like, so we've got the employee assistance program. We've got our range of activities, a range of things here. Shall we have a look at how you might do that differently? Engage the person in their own well-being. Engage them. Don't think that you are the expert. You're not a counsellor. You're not a psychologist. You're not a psychiatrist. You're not the font of all knowledge. You are the facilitator for them getting the help they need. And you are the expert of helping them with work. You then facilitate them, helping them with their mental health. That was a long answer. I hope that was helpful.
It was a really good one, Mandy. And I fully support what you said. And just 3 dead easy words, are you okay, kind of help as well, at the end of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I would, yes, yeah. Be careful about, are you okay? I'm just going to define that a little bit. Be careful about, are you okay? It's a closed question. I mean, it's yes or no. It's a good one and it's a nice one, but just be careful. It's like, how are you doing? It's a little bit easier, just because people can say, I'm a little struggling here, or oh, that was helpful. So how are you doing? It's just a little bit, but listen, it's got to come from within. Don't say the Mandy Rutter words. You've got to say the Jamie words, or you've got to say the Martin words. So you've got to do it your way.
Excellent. Now, I'm really mindful of time, but we have got 3 more questions lined up. Do you have any sense, even anecdotal, as to whether the energy industry is better prepared to manage mental health?
Right. Now, my experience it has been with large organisations, and so I'm really learning about the small organisations, and I'm learning that from Jamie. And if anyone wants to talk to me about smaller organizations to help us in our guidance, please do that. The large organizations are taking a really good responsibility, to be honest. So when you think about BP, you think about Shell, you think about some of the large organizations, they really are doing, I think they're doing quite well in this. They're following their responsibilities as large organizations. It's the smaller ones we've got to help a little bit more. You are pushed against it. You've got big jobs, you've got big shoes to fill. And sometimes productivity and performance goes above mental health. So that's really where I'd like to learn a bit more about how we can help you with that.
Mark, I have just answered one question. I've just sent a message back to you. You asked if the guidance would include something. I have just responded on that one. One last question. It's quite a good one, actually. Is there a correlation between access to funding and mental health problems?
Oh my Lord, that's like the whole day of answering. Like, there is a massive, massive correlation between inequality and mental health. A massive, I mean, inequality is the biggest influencer of mental health. You know, where you live, where, you know, so women and men, if you have disabilities versus able-bodied, LGBT community, in relation to suicide, in relation to depression is high. So inequalities, difference, diversity is a huge correlation of poor mental health. So yes, absolutely right. And I love to talk about that more, really. When you are in poverty, when you are hugely stressed, when you have to worry about where the next, you know, like our migrants coming over, people in Afghanistan, when we think about the migrants coming over, you know, survival has to be first. But that when you're struggling with survival and you're not able to focus on your mental health, trauma, depression, anxiety, all huge. Trauma. So inequality is a massive, massive contributor to poor mental health. And stigma, of course, is huge. And in many, many of our countries that we're working with, suicide, for example, is still an illegal act. You know, when we're not that far away from, if you had a person in your family with mental ill health, you'd build another wall and you'd keep that person behind the wall in your family. We're not that far away. We're not that far away from that. I recognize that I am, you know, here in the UK, we're very privileged in being able to talk about mental health in the way that we are. And I'd really like to use that to be able to support the small organizations, the places where that we can hugely bring some of the learnings that we have, so that you don't have to make the mistakes that we've done over the last 20 years.
Excellent. Thanks, Mandy. I hope that's given you a good comprehensive response to all of your questions. I'm sure you will agree with me that that has been a really insightful webinar and has given everyone, hopefully, a good view as to what we're planning on doing within the Energy Institute to put some guidance out there. Thank you all for your interaction during the presentation. Could I ask everyone to fill in a short feedback survey that will pop up in your browser when the session ends, please? That will be really helpful to us. And also, could I please encourage everyone to post some comments on social media about today's webinar? The further that we can distribute this message on mental well-being, the better. So please, if you've got access to social media, please pass the message on. The webinar has been recorded and a link will be sent to everyone shortly after the session ends. The EI's good practice resources are available to everyone via the Energy Institute's website. The main message from me is please use the resources that are available to you as members. And if you're not members, please click the membership tab on the website as well for more details on how to join. My thanks again go to Babco as the host partner, and also to the National Oil and Gas Authority of Bahrain and the Sustainable Energy Authority who endorse us. But the one big thank you really goes to Mandy. Your enthusiasm on this subject is so engaging, and it really is a pleasure working with you, and long may that continue. Thank you all for joining us today, and have a safe and peaceful day. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye now.